Welcome to Semi Stages of the Pages. And today we're going to go a little different direction. If you're like us, you might be a little tired of 5 tips to make everything work. We're as tired of watching them and making them as you are. So we wanted to have a real conversation, to go deeper, to get more philosophical and more real about what it's like trying to decide if you should stick with your project, your novel, your painting, your creative work, and when it's time to let it go. So in today's episode, I'm Morgan.
This is Molly.
And I'm Teresa.
And we're going to talk about how to know when to quit. And while we're talking mostly about our novels and our ideas, we're going to maybe be talking about some other things too, like maybe when to quit on a friendship, when to put up more boundaries at work, because let's face it, this kind of spills over into lots of different categories. And we thought, why not bring it to we have the brightest viewers and they have the best comments, and we don't have the answers here. So we're going to open up this dialogue. And as we talk, we hope you'll fill up the chat with ideas about how to help us and how to help each other. So Molly, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think one thing that we were talking about before, which really kind of resonated with me, is, I think a lot of us have this background and we have these kind of platitudes in our head about like, don't quit, don't be a quitter. It doesn't matter if you succeed, you have to do it to the best of your ability. Never give up. Always try your hardest. And those can be good that can be good advice in a lot of different scenarios. But I also know, like in my life, like always try your hardest. I can try really hard. I can try to the point where I stop eating, where I sacrifice friendships, I sacrifice relationships, I sacrifice sleep, um, my body, my health to try something. But is that really the right thing to do? I Maybe not all the time. And I know, Teresa, you had another point that you were talking about where, depending on, I'll let you go for it because you said it so well.
So, what we were talking about before was how a lot of times in careers and early projects and everything else, when you hit those bumps, when you hit the this is uncomfortable, when you hit the I've learned something or I've made a horrible mistake, a lot of times the advice is keep going, growth mindsets. It's fine. You learned something. That you'll take that lesson forward for you. Just keep pushing, keep showing up. It will get better. But there also comes a point when maybe you need to stop showing up. Maybe you need to stop pushing. And I think as we were talking about this, we wanted to know when that is, when is your instincts, when is God, when is the universe aligning you to be like, enough, take a break, stop, come back later, or be done. And how do you know?
And I think like the analogy, and it's easier to understand than I think it is to apply, right? It's the difference between being hurt and being injured. And you're hurt, you're sore, whatever, you can push through that, right? You're injured, you keep pushing through that, you might just get more injured. It's not going to help to push through. Not to throw shade, but kind of looking at you, Lindsey Vaughn, right now.
Mhm.
If anyone's not familiar, she tore her ACL less than 2 weeks before the Olympics, which is an injury, right? That is a big injury. And she decided, which was her choice, to play in the Olympics anyway. And, had a big crash and broke her leg. Now, is it directly correlated? We could argue about that, but certainly she was injured. She pushed through anyway. Was it the right call? It was her call to make, right? It was her call to make. And that's where we all exist in life, and that's hard.
I think it's especially hard with a novel because I feel like you're writing and you get to a place with your story where you're either done and it's a rough draft, but it's not being received the way that you want, or you get to like the muddy middle and you feel the pace slowing, you feel the injury, right? Or you feel the hurt of trying to address it. And then you're trying to figure out like what what is it that I need? Is it a break? Like so many of the top authors say you just give it a break. But then there's a whole nother group of authors who say, I had to put that book away. And it wasn't until I started my second book. And that's the one that hit. And I wonder if sometimes we just sit on that first book over and over and over again, trying to heal it, keeping us from our second or third book when we need to like move on.
So I have thoughts on that. So
Good.
my
Good.
debut was Warehouse Dreams. And for the record, if you don't know this, I don't know how to end stories. I have no idea how to end stories. I've gotten much better about being like, do not start writing until you know the ending. But with Warehouse Dreams, I did, everyone's laughing at me because I know it's true. But with Warehouse Dreams, I did not know how to end it. So I reached an ending, and in my mind, I was like, and done with that book. And then I got so much of like, where's the sequel? Where's the sequel? And I wasn't planning on writing the sequel. So I wrote, I don't even know how many words, 100,000 words, 150,000 words of crap. It was crap. It was terrible. It was meandering. Again, had no idea how to end it. I was like, I'll just get there. I'll figure it out. Decided it was terrible. Rewrote another 150,000 words from another character's perspective. Also, could not figure out how to end it. It was crap. It was terrible. So I shelved both and wrote River City Widows and Tiny Gateways and Lost Aboard. Well, all the time, my best seller was Warehouse Dreams. And then the romantasy wave came and it really started selling. And again, where's the sequel? Where's the sequel? Where's the sequel? And I was like, okay, crap, I gotta finish this book. So once again, here I am starting completely over. And I am very pleased to say that in only a few weeks, um, Dreams Under Glass, the sequel to Warehouse Dreams, will be out. And I also have to say, this is like, I am so, oh my God, I'm like tearing up. I can't, oh God, I cannot say how proud I am of myself for pushing through this and doing this and putting together something that actually is good and that I'm proud of. But I don't know if I could have if I hadn't taken a break. Um, but then there's another part of me that's like, look at how many years you wasted too. You know, maybe you would be much further along in your career if you just buckled down and got into it. And I don't know where the answer is. That's why we're having this conversation.
Well, and I love it because it's hindsight's 2020 with all these people who get on and say one way or the other.
Hmm.
And they're often disagreeing and you're trapped in the middle. And when you're doing it, it just I almost feel like it can just be crazy making because you can argue either way in your head.
Yeah.
And I think like I try not to look at time as like wasted, right? And that's hard to do for yourself. I feel like I'm always like holding myself to different standards than I like hold other
Hold
people.
others. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I think, like, Teresa, I look at you and I was like, you weren't wasting your time. You were writing other books. You were doing other things. You were developing your craft. You were building your audience, right? You were going to all these conferences. You were selling, other books. You were learning other skills. And Dreams Under Glass the whole time was taking its time in your mind to develop into the great story that it is. I'm very lucky. I got to beta read Dreams Under Glass, so I'm not just saying that like guessing. I like it. I think it's really good.
Thank you.
And sometimes those stories, sometimes we need more time for our creativity or for our project. And it sometimes things happen really fast and that's great, and sometimes it doesn't. even though that is frustrating for us. Might have a project that goes really fast and then the next one doesn't. And you feel like, well, what happened? Am I the failure? I was able to do this other one so fast. I had so much success in this other thing. And why can't I work like I did before? Why are the words fighting me? Why is this story fighting me? I thought I was a good writer. I thought I was doing this. I thought I was making progress. I thought I was better. And that's really difficult because it's not like that's not how progress works. It's how we
It's
want progress to work,
non-linear.
but it's not how the world
Well,
works. It's not how we work as humans.
and we're and I just had this realization. We are schooled to progress. You start in preschool, then kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way through until you get the job. And then you start at like the first level, and then you work your way up. And so much of the research coming out, and especially Gen Z is saying, I don't want to do the latter. I want to do this, 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 and this. And that's fine because it's my life. It's not somebody else's. And maybe there's value in thinking of things that way.
I heard something the other day that kind of also really resonated with me. And it was someone talking about how they went to like a friend or a family member's house and they walked in and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this house is decorated beautifully and it's so clean and it looks so nice in here." And they were just like filled with this sense of like, "Oh my God, why can't I keep my house clean? Why can't I keep
The
this up to
comparison.
date?" Yeah, this comparison. And they were told by one of their friends, was like, well, that person probably has a clean house as one of their top three priorities in life. Is a clean house one of your top three priorities in life? If it's not, then maybe it's okay that it's not pristine all the time. And kind of thinking about it in terms of like, if you're comparing yourself to other people, right? Like even writing, I have a job that I have to maintain that's not writing, that pays the bills, that has to take priority. I have to, some family relationships and things like that that have, for those need to take priority. So, maybe for me, writing is a fourth or a fifth priority, like behind my health or something like that. And then it's like, well, if I didn't get to this, or I didn't, I'm not as successful as someone who is a professional writer, successful, whatever that means to me, maybe that's okay. Maybe I shouldn't compare myself to that person because that's their job. That's one of their top priorities, maybe. And it's like, okay, how are my priorities going? How are my top three or whatever it might be? And that, at least in that moment, was helpful for me with the house thing because I get real guilt about not keeping, like, walking around my house and being like my house is dirty and there's laundry and there's dishes. I don't know about you ladies, but like real guilt about that somehow for some reason.
I have more guilt about the manuscripts that talk to me.
Mm.
And like, why haven't you worked on me? I really want to be written. Like, I don't know. Leave in the comments if you're like,
Tell me more about your manuscripts that talk to you. Tell me more.
yeah. So like I go through a day and like I saw these clouds today, and they're part of a major inspiration for a novel that I'm working on. And I saw them and I was like, oh, I've got to get to that. I have to get to that. And Teresa was talking about her book, and I have a book I want to redo that I really loved. It was my first book, and it's my heart.
Oh, it's good
And,
too.
and I want to redo it as a dual POV.
Mm.
And I think I know how to fix it. And that's not the one I'm working on right now. I'm not working on either one of those. Right now, I'm working on a YA, a historic romance YA, which you know, and so I'll get into whatever I'm working on. And when I'm working on that thing, then I'm feeling nostalgia, like I should be working. It's almost like FOMO for writing. Like I like feel like my heart wants to be doing all of these things, and I'm saying yes to all of them. And all of them make me happy when I'm working on the thing. So what was it, the Quandro thing, where if you hold it up to and it brings you joy, you should keep it? Well, okay, I did.
Yeah.
And I still have like way too many things that bring me joy, which what a great problem to have. But I can't, there isn't time in the day to do all the things that bring me joy. Like I already cut down to the priorities. And now I'm like, this brings me joy. So here I am. But still, other things bring me joy too. And so I think it gets really tricky because there is one life to live. And you
So
want,
how do you prioritize?
And I think you've made something really interesting. It's like, okay, priorities. There are priorities you have to have for necessity, right? Like, I have to make money. I live in the world. I have to make money. I have to afford food and rent and etc. That's not necessarily a priority I'm doing for joy, right? That's a necessity. Um, I have to eat, I have to stay clean, those are priorities. I have to make them priorities. The health, those kind of things. But then, like you said, Morgan, and this is almost also in the hierarchy of needs as well. Like joy. Where does joy fit in? How do we prioritize? How do we make time for it? And how do we decide the things that bring us joy, which one to focus on? I only have time in the day for one thing that brings me joy. What am I going to pick? I can't pick everything.
Well, and you have to be careful too, because yes, you want to live a joyful life. You absolutely do, but you can't live it 100% of the time because then it's not joyful anymore. It's just life.
and as authors, I feel like we have stories we want to tell because we have themes and morals that we want to get out.
Oh,
And
so many.
deeper, like ways we want to comment on our world using our characters and our world building, um, both in a way to affirm people's lives and to make them feel seen and heard and cared about, but also to critique society and move us to a better place as a species, as a collective, you know. And I think that exists kind of in all authors, even just in the desire to entertain, to escape, you know, to allow levity for a moment, hopefully. Maybe not all, but I think many creators have that joy. They want to give back, they want to share it, you know, that collective. And I know our people on our channel do because we have like a very beautiful group of creatives on our Discord. But I think sometimes it's that very open-heartedness that causes us to have so many things that we want to do because like what is it? Your strength becomes your weakness. Like,
Mm.
So if you have a lot of things that bring you joy in your life, but you don't have enough time to do them all, that impacts your joy as well. So, yeah, that was a good way to put it. Your strength, having a lot of things that bring you joy, is now bringing you down and is then now become a weakness. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, and I think it's also there's this interesting combination. We've been talking about being creative as a joy, and I think it is, but sometimes when you're in the middle of a project or something is happening, it's not always joyful, right? Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes it feels, I don't know, you're angry or you feel inadequate or you feel like clogged up is I don't know the best way. But you can feel a lot of things like when you're on a project and maybe it's not going the way you want. And in that moment, you might not feel joy and it might be really difficult. And you can be tempted to say, well, I'm not feeling joy. I have these other things that make me joyful. I'm just going to move on to something else. And there is like that's sometimes appropriate, but sometimes, like Teresa said, you give it more time, you keep trying, you persevere, and something beautiful comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to know, and sometimes you don't know when you're persevering and you'll find joy again and something beautiful will happen, or when you're persevering and there is no joy at the end. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. You're digging to nowhere. You're just burying yourself in a hole. And that's really hard. And I don't always know like when you know which is which.
Yeah,
Maybe
when, go ahead. I was gonna say, yeah, when do you say enough? And a great example is querying,
I think
when oh, go ahead.
I think when Molly was talking, I might have had epiphany, but I might be wrong. So here we go. Are we ready? Maybe when there's nothing to learn from it anymore.
Oh, I don't know about that one because I can keep learning and learning and learning and not want to anymore. The other thing, too, I'm trying to remember. There's a book that talks about how we make decisions. And when we are deciding whether or not to do something, we tend to make pros and cons list. And as humans, if there is one thing that we're like, okay, that's a good thing, we tend to stick with it. That's why we stay with abusive bosses. That's why we stay in abusive relationships
Me
because
too.
we're like, yeah, we're like,
But I
well,
love them and they love me. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt
and
you.
oh no, you're fine. There was a abusive relationship. Well, he brought me flowers like 2 weeks ago. That was really sweet, and it meant a lot to me. So he can tell me I'm an awful person, but because of how our brains operate, a lot of times we'll focus in on but the flowers because change is hard, and we will trick ourselves into saying that one thing's worth it, and maybe it's not. Go ahead.
And so this also reminds me of something. Well, because when you talk about like relationships, right? Often when we are on the outside of something like that, we can look in and we can say, that's not acceptable. You need to get out. Whether it's a romantic relationship or a boss or a friendship or
Or a
something like
novel.
that. Or a
Sometimes the beta
novel. Yeah.
reader knows. Sometimes
Yeah.
the beta reader's like, don't focus on that one, focus on the other one. This one's actually got a chance.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this, like, that combines with something that I heard once, which is that, and this might not be true, but it's something that I heard once, which is that the people who like die mountaineering and die
Mhm.
hiking are the people who tend to actually be like experts and tend to be like really high level, because people who are novice tend to stop. They see a bad condition, they come against an obstacle, and they say, "I can't. I don't think I can do this. This isn't right. I'm not good enough for this." And then they leave, and that's good because sometimes they can't do it. But the experts say, "No, I can do it. I can persevere. I can go through this. This is not too much of a challenge. The weather isn't too bad. I can do this." And they persevere, and then they don't always know their own limits of their skill because they persevered beyond what really their limits were. Right? And sometimes it takes like, it's okay to sometimes say, maybe I'm not up for the challenge. But when we've been doing something for a long time and we've had success and we think that success is going to continue. We think we're going to keep writing, we're going to do more books, we're going to do that kind of thing. We're like, I can keep doing this. I've done it before. I can persevere. Everybody tells me just keep working, just keep going. And really, maybe the weather conditions are bad and you need to go to another mountain. And you can come back to
Mhm.
this mountain. I don't know. I don't know if that analogy works.
No,
It
it
got me
it
thinking.
works. It's the other common analogy is the boiling frog one. Put a frog in
Mm,
boiling water and they jump out. Put a frog in cold water and gradually heat it, and the frog dies. So, and again, it's kind of the same thing. We get used to things. Um, you know, uh, there's also the stories about the pilots who every alarm on the plane is going off and going off and going off, and they're trying to silence all the alarms, but they're missing the one that is telling them the plane is going to crash. But because there's all this static and all this noise around it, they miss it entirely. So there's also that part too of we can distract ourselves from what our minds, our emotions, our souls are trying to tell us. So
Yeah.
I don't know. How do how do we navigate this stuff, you
Wonder,
guys?
I wonder if you take 2 or 3 days off and you still want to come back to it, or if those 2 or 3 days off are such a relief you could just walk away.
Mm, that's a good, I like that. Like, do you, if you walk away from the project after a few days, do you feel relief or do you still feel guilt?
Or do you hunger to come back to it? Do you
Or you
miss
hungry? Yeah.
you long for it?
I don't know on that one because I know too many people who take breaks from projects and don't go back to them.
And
And,
then
and they keep saying they want to. They just fell out of the habits.
Mm.
you have all the self-help books who say you do the habit, do the habit, do the habit. So maybe, okay, new idea.
Right, every day.
Yeah, here's a new one.
Well, and then sorry to like some of that advice is also very neurotypical advice too.
Oh, good points. I will continue to say I don't know a single neurotypical person.
I wonder how much of it is about balance. If you
Mhm.
have 4 or 5 priorities that are really important, like your family or your mental health, and you know, everybody has. All I can think about is the clean house now, which would not be mine.
It is to a lot of people.
But
It
Molly,
is.
you made an impression. But so you have your priorities, right? Like for mine are going to be like family, children. I actually love my job because I work with kids, but so I have my priorities, and I feel like when the thing is dropping my priorities out or causing such negative emotion or turmoil in me that it spills over and has negative effects on the other parts of my life that are so important, that's when I need to take a break.
But
Yeah.
how much of that is just, well, okay, taking a break versus quitting? And maybe, because you're right, you keep pushing, and it affects your other priorities. How long do you let it affect your other priorities?
How many
But
workaholics
then,
toxic marriages?
say that again.
How many workaholics end up in toxic marriages?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we can draw the parallels as how do you know you should stay at your job or find a new one? How do you know your relationship is worth saving? Or if, and this might be a romantic relationship, might be a friend relationship, whatever. Because you can put in more work on some things, but that doesn't mean it's worth saving.
Wait, an idea.
We all go to therapy.
Teaching, we have this thing called PBIS, and it's where you do like 5 specific positive comments towards a child before you do like a correction, right?
Hmm.
And they say that about it comes from research based on how you feel when you're around somebody. So if 5 of my encounters with Teresa and Molly are positive, and then there's one negative, we'll keep pushing through because the overwhelming connection is that mostly we have a positive relationship. But when that tips to 4 to 1, then it starts to get dicey. And when it tips to 3 to 1, it gets even more dicey. 2 to 1, you leave usually, or it flips over. So I wonder how much that would affect like our opportunities with our novels or our writing, is if there's some kind of balance of a 5 to 1 or 4 to 1 ratio, like there is with human connection.
Do you have an example? I'm trying to think like
Okay,
what that would be.
like in writing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do writing, and then querying. So in writing, it's like I sit down and I'm like on a roll, and I'm like, oh, and then I sit down the next day and I'm like, I have no idea where the setting is. I don't dialogue, nothing is coming. Yeah, Molly's got it, right, and then I sit down the next day and I was like, I start kind of slow, but at the end I get a couple great sentences. So that's okay. So like out of the 6 times I sit down to write, mostly there's a moment of like breakthrough or aha moment, or like, and then I'm going to keep going. But if it's like 6 days where every day is like, I don't know, I feel stupid, I feel inadequate, I feel like I know what I want this character to be, but I don't know how to get what's on my head onto the page because I feel like I don't have the skill level. Then maybe it's time for me to take a class to break that through. Maybe I don't want to just sit and write and write and write. Maybe I need to connect with other people on some stages or get feedback to like keep that energy going. Like in querying, maybe I do my first batch of 10 queries and I don't get any positive feedback. So then I do a workshop where I get people who will give me positive feedback and help me kind of clean it up before I push it out again. So maybe part of it is about knowing when it's clogged up to seek other ways forward. And then if the idea of reaching out for help is disgusting, makes you feel gross, maybe that's when it's time to either quit or put it aside. At the point when you don't want even other people to help you describe that character the way you want.
You said something interesting here that kind of resonated with me, which is like this idea of like when you think about your project and you're just filled with, now we're going into something that I'm dealing with, right? Like I think about querying one of my novels and it just fills me with this sense of absolute disgust and dread to do it.
Oh,
Like it is not, it's not even that there's no joy. It's that I think about doing it and I think I would rather, this is
clean your
a little,
house.
no, I would rather like
Fresh.
stab myself like with a
Oh,
pin. Like I don't condone self-harm or anything like that, but like there's so many things I would rather do. And when it's that level, it's like, okay, this is not for me at this point with it. I'm trying to recognize that, like, okay, if I think that this is worse than like bad things, maybe it's really bad for my mental health to be doing this particular thing right now. And maybe I'll feel better about it later. Maybe I can persevere later. But right now, I think persevering with it in this way is not good for me, is causing me harm in a way that isn't good.
And
Um,
you
and I
mentioned
have some guilt about that, but yeah, go Morgan.
you mentioned disgust and dread, and another one I wanted to add because I think it's a common. Well, I want to see if you feel this. I know I feel this. Embarrassment.
yes.
I'll feel a lot of embarrassment. Like I want to put myself out there, and then once I'm that vulnerability's out there, then there's just this huge, like you're saying, dread. But for me, it mixes with embarrassment, and I want to hide. And so it's very difficult to like keep putting myself out there because I just feel so vulnerable and exposed. And I want to be authentic. And I hate this world of social media where you're supposed to post all this time and you're supposed to put yourself out there in this. Like, I want to actually form deep, meaningful like relations with people. Like, anyone who knows me knows that's my heart. And so the idea of just living in this, like, just to me, it's like greedy, consumption based world where they take your novel that you love so much and then they just like judge it and rip it apart. And the question isn't even what value does it have. The question is how much
It's,
money can it bring people?
yes.
And that in itself has this just like stained feeling. It's like, do I even want to be part of that? Like, what am
Mm.
I doing? Going back to priorities.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like with the querying thing, it's like, what's even the point? Like, even if I, like, we're being transparent here, right? We're being super honest and emotional about how we feel. And that means that sometimes I'm not always optimistic and chipper and all that kind of stuff because sometimes I look at it, I'm like, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? This is just sometimes I honestly feel like, okay, even if I got an agent, am I just wasting my time here? Like, what, why am I spending all this time? I could be spending this time writing. I like writing, even if it goes to nobody, I like it. It makes me happy. I get ideas that come out of it. I feel like I'm doing something, I'm adding to the world, whatever, even if I'm watching TV, at least like that brings my brain some joy sometimes, But like this querying, I'm like, is anyone even reading this? Is this just wasting time? Even if I got an agent, what's the point? Even if I got this published, who's going to read it? What's the point? And there's some bad demons in there too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should listen to all of these voices. I'm just saying like the number of people creating stuff versus the number of people getting published is so low. And even when you're good, if your good stuff is good, that might not matter. Good stuff gets overlooked all the time.
So, two parts of this to me of what I'm hearing. So the three of us are all very successful in our careers in different ways, in our day jobs. We've gotten there by pushing. We've gotten there by showing up. We've gotten there by saying yes. We've gotten there by somebody being like, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? You know what you should do? And we've said yes, yes, yes. So to us, success is in many ways tied to growing the ladder. And there are many, many successful authors out there who queried, got a book published, got more books published, got the movie deal. Bam, they're having a wonderful life. So we got the comparison parts going there, combined with if you just try, you will get there. If you say yes, you will get there. If you do what I'm telling you, you will get there. And that is not how the publishing world works. It is, it doesn't follow that model, but we're told but we've gotten success in our other life. So we naturally do that. We naturally follow that. Both of your brains are exploding. Go.
I was just say we're conditioned to believe that the more effort we put in, the better the thing will be. The better the thing will be, the better our results will be. And that our
Right.
effort is directly tied to what the results are. And that's not true.
Not in this. In our careers, it often is not in creativity. Morgan.
Morgan.
And my critique's a little different in the sense that I sometimes have a hard time querying because I see it a little bit dirty. Like I
Mm.
not all bought in that success is about money, or even that I want to be a published author. That
Mm-hmm.
to me, I like don't necessarily sit and think, oh, I want to have $1 million book deal. I do think I want somebody to read my book and I want it to change their life and teach a valuable lesson. But there is something about me that's very much like, is that really the world I want to be associated with? Is that really what this is about? And so there's another layer of like philosophical angst about what it means to participate in a society in this way that my values don't fully align with.
Mm. I understand what you're saying. Like, why should my creativity fuel the capitalistic gains of giant corporations? Because
Right.
even if I get published and if I don't go the traditional, or sorry, if I don't go the indie route, right? I get an agent, I get traditionally published, and my book sells and stuff like that. The people who are going to profit the most from my creativity will be people like Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. And not to say, like you said, Morgan, the money isn't necessarily the goal right now when I write. Um,
And for me,
so
it's not at all ever.
yeah, yeah. So why would I get it. Why would I contribute to that kind of capitalistic overtaking of creativity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's fair for us to have these deep seated conversations and to really evaluate what priorities are. Because if we do have one life to live at the end of our life, what do we want people to really like leave? And I think a lot of the best books I've ever read, the authors made nothing. They were famous when well after they died, you know, and thank God they wrote them. So many of my favorite books, that's the story. So many of the classics, that's the story.
Yeah, the penniless author. I mean, look at Frank Baum. Yeah, look at Dickens. And Dickens, in many ways, Dickens was fascinating because he did want the money. He was so wordy because he got paid because of the money, or because of the amount of words he wrote, and he knew he needed it. But he also, a lot of his best work, he did not get well paid at all, and he had to fight for some of his best things to get published and read.
And I love like the transcendentalists. So I love like Emerson and Whitman and Blake, who were having issues with their work receiving money even as they were writing it. And to me, that expression of the muses and why we were gifted with the muses and what our job as creatives and our life force should, for me, does transcend capitalism, right? It does transcend into all economics, not just capitalism, but into a place of communal space that honors all living things for me. And so I think when to quit, maybe I just answered my own question for myself, is like when to quit is when it's not serving the reason I create. And maybe that's what you have to find out, is why you create, what you really create, not your secondary and tertiary reasons or the reason the society tells you you create, but like what you internally, your values really say why you create.
And I think what you've said is really, really powerful. And I think sometimes the reason we don't sometimes follow this, and it goes back to even when Teresa's talking about, why do we stay when we know we should leave, right? Why do we keep doing it? And it's we know, but it's this aspect of opportunity cost. We've
Hmm.
invested so much into something. We've invested, and in this case, like invested so much into the dream, so much into the dream of, for example, wanting to be traditionally published. And then to decide that no, actually, that doesn't fit with my values. That doesn't fit with what brings me joy. That doesn't fit with why I'm doing this. It all this kind of stuff feels like giving up, feels like becoming a quitter, and it feels like giving up on your dream. But
Hmm.
maybe we've seen so many times in media and in real life, your dream isn't always the dream that you have to begin with, isn't always what's best for you. And it isn't always what you thought it would be.
And it's okay for your dream to change. It's also okay to accomplish something and be like, congrats, high five, I accomplished it. And then move on and do something else. Just because you had a success doesn't mean you have to keep going. And that's true. Let's go back to relationships and jobs. You can acknowledge a relationship was beautiful and wonderful and great, but it is no longer the case. And you can respect and honor what that relationship was and then be like, and done. I'm just going to hold on to the memories of it. I'm not a failure for saying it's done. I've changed as a person. Same with jobs. It is okay to say, I am done with this job. I have learned what I needed to learn. I have climbed where I needed to climb. I've done whatever I needed to do. And I'm going to go and do something else now. And I'm going to hold on to that because that was good. But now I want to do something different.
I think I had an epiphany.
Go for it.
If we're quitting something because it got hard, that might not be the best long term, or that might not be the best choice.
Hmm.
If we're quitting something or stopping something because it doesn't fit with who we are anymore, and it doesn't fit our values anymore, and it doesn't fit what we want out of life anymore. It doesn't serve our purpose. It doesn't serve our fulfillment, our needs, whatever that might be. If it doesn't serve those things, I don't think quitting makes us failures. I think that's recognizing it doesn't serve us and we need to let go, we need to change, and that's okay. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not about failing, that's not about giving up, that's about changing and adapting and honoring who we are and the fact that that person evolves and changes in an ever evolving world.
I like the word outgrow
Yeah.
or like move on. Teresa, the whole time you were talking, I was like, yeah, we can outgrow things. And that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we should celebrate when we outgrow things, not say, oh, we are quitters or lazy. No, we just outgrew it.
Yeah.
We're
And why is that? Why aren't we normalizing that?
I would invite all of you. Hopefully, you have found this interesting, therapeutic. Again, as Morgan said, we wanted to be authentic and raw and talk about something that we think about, and we get frustrated when we see things that are just like 5 tips to persevere. And while that's good sometimes, that can also be very frustrating. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like
also, we
how
tried them.
Yeah, go watch them. They're
yeah,
actually pretty good, but we
yeah.
wanted
And
something different.
yeah. And so let us know what you thought. Let us know if you like this kind of authentic conversation where we are exploring the topic with you all. And please comment below, what you think. How do you decide when to persevere and when it's okay to quit?
And
and
then don't and then don't forget to like and subscribe.
and we definitely haven't outgrown our time with you. So if you want to see us on Discord, jump on where we can keep chatting. Have a wonderful day.
Take care, everyone. Bye.